Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Welcome to the Performance Matters podcast from GP Strategies, your talent transformation partner. In each episode, we'll interview industry experts and explore best practices and innovative insights to help your organization improve performance.
Hey there, leaders and change makers. Michael Teal here, and I've got a question that just might shift how you think about your team. What if the key to future-proofing your organization isn't just in the boardroom, but right there on the front lines? In today's episode of the Performance Matters podcast, I'm joined by the ever-insightful Nic Girvan, who's here to challenge the norm and shine a light on the untapped potential of individual contributors. If you're ready to rethink your training strategy, boost engagement, and build a culture of growth from the ground up, well, stick around. This one's a game changer. Nic, welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you, Michael. And thank you for inviting me back again. I feel like we've had a run this year, and it's really great to have these conversations.
Well, I love having you here. Listeners, by the way, Nic is a multi-time guest friend of the show. We need to get her the Performance Matters smoking jacket at some point here. I don't know if we're going to do crushed blue velvet like they do on Saturday Night Live, but this has got to be at least your fifth time here.
Then I am so up for the jacket. I feel like I've earned it at this point. Let's do it.
We love having great, insightful leaders here. Now, for those that haven't had a chance to listen to a prior episode, I encourage them to go on to either the podcast platform of their choice or GP Strategies and look at our podcast section and search for Nic Girvan. There's all kinds of great episodes there. But Nic, for those that are new to Nic Girvan, can you just share a bit of your professional bio with us?
Actually, I'm the Director of Product for Leadership and Inclusion here at GP Strategies. In terms of who I am an executive leader for the past 10 years, and I've been working in learning and development for the past 20. So from that, you can get that I'm really geeky and I love the idea of people development. My background is in psychology, it's in adult teaching practice. And one of the things that absolutely drives my career is learning that makes a difference, that reinforces that behavioral change need and means that people's worlds are just a little bit different to what they started with. So very passionate about development, about opportunity, and of course, growth.
Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. It definitely shines through when I've listened to you. I mean, I've learned so much from you about the DEI movement isn't about being soft and inclusive, and I'm putting quotes around that. It's about driving bottom line performance and retention. I mean, there's so much there. So for those that, like I said, are questioning this or wondering about it, I want them to go back into our archives and listen to the insight that you've shared with me. Now, today we're talking about getting everyone in the organization future ready. I think that fits in the inclusion area there, Nic. And when we're talking about training budgets, from my perspective, I think leadership development, it seems to always get the spotlight. But what about the rest of the team? What's your take on that?
I'd say you're absolutely right. When most of us think about our training budget spends, we immediately go to leadership development programs. Maybe we go to our mandatory compliance courses, and there's probably a few listeners that are thinking about the occasional team away day. But let's be honest, when it comes to individual contributor training, that often ends up in the, if there's anything left, we'll talk about it pile. And I'm not judging, I get it. Budgets are tight. And we often think about how we're going to spend that investment. We want to have an impact. We need to weigh up where we're going to get the most value. So traditionally, we have lent towards investing in people with manager or director in their title, because they're the ones that are going to be steering the ship. They're overseeing our services. They're providing that essential direction when things get tough. But here's the thing, because a title doesn't always reflect impact. And behind every manager is a team of individual contributors, people who don't have that leadership title, but they do have deep expertise, they have fresh ideas, and they really influence how our services actually serve. I think when we're thinking about our investment, if we're going to be serious about future-proofing our organization, we do need to shift our mindsets a little. I'm just going to go back to my steering the ship analogy. I don't know when I become so nautical.
You're from Scotland. It's natural.
Yeah, we're on board with that. See, on board. There we go. It's not enough to just invest at those at the helm. Because if our sails don't have any wind, then no amount of steering is going to move us forward. Real progress doesn't come from a few people making the moves. It comes from empowering the many. And that means that we need to give our individual contributors the tools, the training, the confidence to grow and lead from where they are. And Michael, wouldn't it be wonderful if our budget holders could just pause the world for a moment and consider what would change in their organization if every team member had access to those training opportunities?
So if we do invest in individual contributors, what kind of impact can we expect to see, not just in performance, but maybe in how people feel about their work?
Well, investing in training for frontline staff, it makes more of a difference than we tend to realize. I'm not just talking from a skills perspective. I do mean about how the individual views and brings value to the wider organization. You know that at GP, we often talk about the X model of engagement, right?
Yes.
It's that sweet spot intersection of maximum contribution and maximum satisfaction. That's where people are not only delivering real value, but they also feel fulfilled and motivated in their work. So, Michael, if it's okay with you, I'd love to just hog the mic for a moment and just explain how those personal development opportunities are on both axes. So, on that note, on the contribution side, training opportunities, they build the skills, they boost the confidence that helps people align more closely to the organization's goals. Just this week, someone in my team came to me with an idea on how to improve our build process. And this was something I hadn't even had on my radar. But because we'd been working on their development, they had the confidence, the capability, and if I'm honest, the headspace to really spot that opportunity. And that's the kind of impact that comes from investing in potential. So that's a great spike for the contribution side. On the satisfaction side, training sends a powerful message. We see you, we believe in you, and you matter here. And when people feel supported, that's when they see themselves growing and the true engagement really happens. We'll start to see staff that overcome self-doubt, that lean into a growth mindset. And I'm sure you've seen Gallup's research recently that showed that employees who feel that they're learning and they're growing are significantly more likely to stay with their employer, which means that development opportunities are not just nice to have. They're a strategic lever and they should be part of your talent strategy.
This has been my life in the past week. I've had a chance to work with several thought leaders here within the organization on this mystical concept of agentic AI. And when I've had a chance to get in, get my hands dirty and go, wow, this is exciting. I can see that X model come to life. I'm gaining more skills. I feel I can have more contribution. I see the belief. 5:30 rolls around and you're not like, whoa, let me clock out. You're excited to do more and get that discretionary effort. Like you're saying, it's not a luxury. It's bottom line. Everyone wins. Fair enough?
I love that. And I love that you're living that example because that is absolutely what we're aiming for, both with development and engagement and just that general corporate identity.
Absolutely. Now, I will say this here. We don't want to ignore the leaders. I mean, you mentioned leadership training earlier. What happens when we extend those skills beyond just managers?
Okay, so let's take a step back a moment and think about the kinds of leadership that training is traditionally invested for. Typically, it's aimed at managers and it's covering things like collaboration, communication, accountability, which are all incredibly valuable skills. But here's the question. What if those same skills weren't just reserved for people with manager in their title? Don't we just love the idea that everyone on the team, regardless of the role, had the same access to that leadership toolkit? Suddenly, you're not just developing better managers, you're creating a shared language, a shared mindset that filters across the organization. And that's where things really start to shift.
I think the word that you just hit there, the shared language, the power of collaboration. It's not like, oh, it's the managers versus us, right?
Exactly that. When individual contributors can understand those same skills and give feedback, lead those difficult conversations, and align their own work to the broader goals, they're not just doing their job, they're contributing at that higher level. And of course, going back to the X model that we were just talking about, they're going to get that satisfaction rise because they're starting to feel equipped and trusted and included in cultivating that leadership culture. And you know what I'm like for talking about culture, it's my absolute go-to, but it isn't just about referring to it anecdotally. The IOSR journal found that, structured training, especially soft skills like communication, like leadership or emotional intelligence, they're the ones that play a critical role in shaping workplace culture, which once again means that training isn't just about the technical know-how, it's about sharing the skills to shape the organization's ability, but we're going to do it from the ground up.
Yeah, you've got me really fired up here because I've always felt that soft skills, the name is a bad name.
Yes.
It's not soft. They're the catalyst. It's like in chemistry class, not that I was really good in chemistry, but you put that little drop in the chemical and it's the catalyst that changes everything. To me, that's what culture is. And I love that you're not just using the word culture like it's on a successories poster. You're giving specific things that our listeners can do about it to make a positive change. Now, I will say this also, Nic, thinking about this, I've got some great friends that have no interest in being a manager. I've got a friend who's in the multi-billion-dollar gaming industry. He's like, I love animating video games. I'm happy being an individual contributor here. So what I want is, from your perspective here, for those that aren't on the management track here, how do we support growth for people that still want to have impact or leadership in different ways? What type of perspectives do you have on that, or tips, insights for our listeners?
Okay, this is the part where I get genuinely excited because it's where my passion for uplifting every employee connects directly into the long-term benefits of developing well-rounded leaders. So when I mentioned in my opening how I get a little geeky around change and that learning experience, I'm going to have a geek out moment whilst I connect those dots.
Geek out? That's what we're here for.
Okay, in that case then, let's talk about the general progression identity, because most of us recognize that traditional corporate ladder is becoming a thing of the past. These days, I prefer to talk about the corporate lattice instead.
Ooh, okay, wait, stop there. Instead of corporate ladder, corporate lattice. I just want to pause on that.
Yes.
That's cool. Tell us what that means. I don't quite understand it.
So visualize the idea of a lattice. Careers aren't just about going in one direction. We're not just climbing up that ladder anymore. Now, what we're doing is we're moving sideways or diagonally, or do you know what? We may even be pausing and we're not going anywhere on our lattice because we're deepening our expertise. And that's a good thing. Because if you take your friend, somebody who doesn't want to necessarily lead teams, just wants to be brilliant at what they do, amazing. Let's keep that person engaged. Offer them different development opportunities that will help them develop in their current role. Because when we're doing that, not only are they going to be more motivated and challenged, but we're also going to cultivate our own in-house specialists. So what I'd say, probably breaking the third wall for a moment here, but I'm going to speak directly to you for a moment. Take a minute and think about your team members. Who's quietly making a big impact without the title? But most importantly, what are you doing to support their development and their engagement? Because let's be honest, they're the ones you turn to. They're the ones that are going to be your mentors, your experts, and they're going to have that fresh perspective. So you want to keep them enticed and growing and moving forward in the role that they're in. So that's one part of the lattice, the people that want to shift along it, but don't necessarily want to go up the levels. But we've also got the people who eventually do want to move into leadership, but not necessarily in that straight line. So maybe they've taken different roles, maybe they've worked across departments or even switched industries. Now, if we're developing them as they're in these different roles on their detour, we're not just preparing them for leadership, we're enriching our leadership pool when they finally get there, because they're going to bring these diverse experiences and the broader thinking. These are the people that are going to come into our boardroom and break down our silos. They're going to challenge our status quo, and they're going to bring best practice from all over. So I guess what I'm trying to say is investing in employee development isn't just about today's performance. It's not just about climbing a rung. It's about future-proofing the whole organization and your employees' future identities. Because whether they're leading teams or leading through expertise, we're still benefiting from that.
This is really great, Nic. I'm excited about this as a concept, the corporate lattice. My question to you, though, because a lot of our listeners are probably like me saying, I'm excited, but what does this look like in practice? So I'm going to hold your feet to the fire here a little bit. How are you helping individual contributors get future ready right now?
I love that.
Forgive me for being so demanding.
Oh, no, demand away. Practicals are so important. Otherwise, you've just got a whole load of excitement and no way to channel it. So I guess when I think about learning as an identity, we've talked on a previous episode about point-of-need learning libraries. And they're the bite-sized digital learning moments. They can be scaled across organizations, accessed whenever needed. I'm still a strong advocate for that approach, especially if your budgets are tight. So, practical takeaway, if you haven't got an extensive amount to go spending, don't write off the individual contributor development. Think about a digital pathway. But I also recognize that some topics, especially ones that are being discovered for the first time, they require a solid foundation. And this can be best laid through instructor-led sessions. So we are actually just launching a new catalogue, and it's called, handily, Get Future Ready. These are the instructor-led modules. They are crafted specifically for individual contributors, although yes, they would work for your leaders too. But the purpose is to help employees not to just grow in their roles, but explore who they are and who they want to evolve to be. So Get Future Ready is about leveling the playing field. We're talking about topics that really matter right now, storytelling, courageous conversations, unlocking peer potential, and one that we are all in desperate need of, which is, of course, mental resilience. These are the kind of skills that people need to really thrive in today's workplace. So whether somebody's navigating complex team dynamics or trying to influence without authority, maybe they're just looking to build their own confidence, these are practical, human-centered experiences that are really going to change those behaviors. So for any budget holders listening to us right now, whether you're spending with GP or any other organization, think about these skills. Think about the difference it could make to your company when you start to consider how and who you're investing in. Because if we're only investing in a few leaders and they leave, we're going to be pretty vulnerable. But if we're building that capability across the board, that's when you become future ready.
That's beautiful. And if I'm understanding you correctly, this is relatively industry agnostic content, right? So you could offer this to financial services, pharma, automotive, where I live and work, right?
Yes, absolutely. We're focusing on the people and the people's skills, which means it works across the board. So again, going back to that corporate lattice idea, even if you change industries, you're still going to have those courageous conversation skills go with you.
Oh, I love it. Those are what we've called those persistent skills. If you looked at a tree, that's the trunk you're talking about, not the leaves that fall in. So that's amazing here. I just want to say, as always, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and helping our listeners get future ready. We certainly appreciate you.
You're very welcome. And thank you so much for having me to talk about this conversation.
The Performance Matters podcast is brought to you by GP Strategies. Together, we can create a world where business excellence makes possibilities achievable. You can subscribe to the show anywhere you get podcasts or listen on our website at gpstrategies.com.